It's typical to attach your fly line to the very end of your tapered leader with a nail knot. Okay. Now, where this Midge Tip came with a loop on it, I want to let that survive maybe a season. Usually I just come up and I cut it right off. And you can see there's a little fat portion. And when you cut them off, you need to cut the whole thing off, because if you kind of only halfway commit, I've had this split when I've tied a nail knot on one, not this particular brand, and then I had problems with the fish. So if you're going to take the loop off, take it all the way off to a fresh piece of line. Anyways, for now, we're going to build a leader that we can loop back onto this with a triple surgeon's loops, kind of against how I do things, but just in the fashion of this line and how they have it set up. We'll humor that for now. So if we were going to tie a nail knot, I'm going to show you how that would work. There's a little crosshair, a little cross hole in this tool, and basically all you need to do is put the edge of your leader inside of that. Once you get it tucked in there, you just tighten this, twist it, and it will lock that in there. Okay, and this is just a tapered leader, and then all we have to do is wrap this up and around. You can bring it around like that, or you can, let me try to get that focus there, or you can rotate the tool like that and build those nice little lashings. And then once you have it like that, all you've got to do is get a hold of the end and thread it back through. Sorry, I had to go find the end because it's 9 feet long or whatever. But you thread it back through under those lashings there. Hopefully you can see that. And you just start pulling the line through. I'll just pull that whole leader all the way back through there. A little tippet knot on there. Then I can let go of it. So at that point, I've got my nail knot started. And all I've got to do is put my fly line in to transfer the knot. So this little tool is called the winder. It's been around for, I don't know, 25 years or 20 years. It's been around for a long time. Just not real popular. Maybe only a couple thousand of them a year is all I ever sold to people. But I've always loved this tool for the nail knot, just because I'm able to tie the knot on the tool and then go back for the fly line later. Anyways, so at this point, get your fly line in there, and remember, on your fly lines, it's always right. You want to use that line sparingly, because you never know how much is there, and you don't want to take apart your weight forward on that tip. So you just kind of pull those first couple knots a little bit loose, and then transfer that knot, and you'll see it start to, I'm going to try and refocus a little bit. You'll see it start to kind of form there, and then you should get it wet, but I'm just going to kind of show you what that looks like. And as I pull that down, we'll just cinch it down nice and tight. So that's the easiest way I found to build my nail knots, is with that tool. And then you can really trim this, like that piece of fly line, all the way up to there. And the hope is that you don't have to change that out very often, because you don't want to lose an inch like that every few seasons, right? It starts to turn into, that line getting shorter and shorter. Then we'll just pull this out of the clamp there, and then I'm gonna cut that shorter, and I'll show that to you what that looks like. So that's how I do all my nail knots on most of the stuff I'm tying, and I'm able to get really nice, pretty tight knots. And you can bunch it up even closer than that, and just really make those knots really perfect so they'll slide through the eyelets of your pole. But anyways, we're leaving the loop on our midge tip for now. If we do go back, that's what I would do to it. I want to talk a little bit about leaders, because if you don't taper your leaders, they're not going to cast well. And if you look at these kind of pre-programmed leaders, this is a 12 foot. So technically, if you want to maintain the taper of one of those 12 foot 6X leaders, that's kind of a general idea of how you would go about maintaining that. So on some of these midge tip setups, especially the one recommended by Fly Fish Food, they didn't have this. They basically are just kind of using long, really long portions of just a couple of diameters, 2 or 3 diameters of line. At least that's what they showed me at the shop, or my understanding of what they showed me. So I'll try to tie one in their style since they've recommended the line, and I might cheat a little bit and add a couple of other diameters, because I've got these other diameters that allow me to kind of taper my line off. Right, I like that big portion of line, that back portion, to have fatter diameters, so I'll still have some whip in the line. And so there is a rule called the 60-20-20 rule, and that just basically 20% consists of 1 or 2 pieces of all the tippet, essentially. Anyways, we've got to get a leader built, and I'll quit rambling. I do want to show you one more thing. So I keep this in my vest. That's what I use for tippet when I'm chasing down big fish. Or there's a few other brands. This is what I bought recently. I like this one because it has a line cutter and a line keeper with the rivet in it. But when I'm tying big bulky leaders that are really long and they're going to use up a bunch of line, I've been using this Berkeley Vanish fluorocarbon in 10 pound and 6 pound. And it's just a lot more cost effective on the line to use fishing line that way. So my first 3 feet are going to be 15 pound, 15 thou inch line on this leader. And I'm going to tie a surgeon's loop on the end to loop onto that fly line. So I'm going to get my first 3 feet of line tied, and I'm going to tie it up to one of these tippet rings, and then I'll have a loop on the other end. In order to tie the surgeon's loop, you just kind of have to fold the line in half, and then once you kind of have it in half, you're just going to take that loop and you're going to wrap it through the loop you made twice. So there's one, just kind of pretending it's one piece of line, and then I'll push that loop back through that one more time. Okay, so just basically an overhand knot wrapped through twice that way, and don't let your tag end come unwound or the knot will get kind of weird. And then I'm going to go ahead and wet that, and then we're going to pull it down tight. In fact, I'm going to shove that tag end back through one more time. I'm worried that it did come out. That looks right to me now. Okay, we'll just pull all that down tight. See if I can get my pinky in there. Just pull it really hard. Okay, I'm going to have to bite on that piece to pull on it. And there is the finished goods. So that's going to loop right onto our loop connection on our fly line. I have put one of those tippet rings in my hemostats because I just can't hold on to them. But all we need to do is tie an improved clinch on this. So we'll just rotate that around, 3 to 7 times. And once you've got that tag end available to you, you can just feed it through that open loop right there. If you can get it, that heavier monofilament is really, really strong. And then it just has to feed back through that loop that it kind of created. So we'll come in here and pull that down. I need to moisten that knot too, or that knot will actually have problems. Okay, and that's kind of what it looks like at the moment as I start pulling that down. I'll just keep pulling on it and pulling it tight. Those bigger mono lines are a little bit tougher to get everything tightened down on them, but it it should just slowly keep working its way down onto that ring. So there's the finished one. It kind of broke off in my teeth while I was trying to tighten it, but now we can release that little ring from there. Now you might ask, why are we going to the trouble to put this ring on? And it does a couple of things. One, if I had a nail knot going back to my fly line over here, right? Remember, we got a loop. This piece of line is just going to stay the same length, and I'm tying things, right, once we loop these together. This other little piece of line is just going to stay connected on there. And the thing about it is that if something goes wrong, the idea is I'm just tying line back up to this ring. But the ring also does something else too. There's my loop connection. You just kind of pull that down. Don't have to be super tight. The ring does something else too. It adds a little bit of weight, right? Because we don't necessarily have such a tapered leader anymore. So you want to be able to make sure that you're not cutting this piece back all the way and then losing that length on it. Anyways, so from here we'll start working on the rest of the tippet. But that's ring to fly line connection. I'm going to unhook that because I like to tie my taper and all my droppers on before I do that. I just wanted to show you what that connection looked like. We started out with 15-pound mono for the ring, and now I'm moving down to 10, and from